Hello, and welcome to our EDM webinar titled Enabling Safe Use of Data and Adoption of GenAI. I welcome Mike Meriton, co-founder of EDM Council. He will be kicking off the presentation. Over to you, Mike.
Thank you, Angie, and welcome to our EDM webinar audience. So why are we here today? This is a really exciting time. We have unlimited compute and storage power with cloud. And in the last year, all of our eyes have been opened up to the capabilities of generative AI, large language models, and more that can deliver new products, new services, and new capabilities at an exponential rate compared to where we were even a year or two ago. Nevertheless, this is also a time for data challenges and data threats. We can expect new regulation like the OpenAI Act in the European Union and the recent US AI executive order, which will seek to make sure that AI provides transparency and explainability and underscores the protection of sensitive data. So in this EDM webinar, we're going to delve into pioneering methods for data security and compliance, emphasizing the safe adoption of generative AI. Our panel has representatives from Databricks, the data and AI company, Securiti, the Unified Data Command Center company, and Asurion, a tech care company. So let's get on with introducing our panelists. For our first panelist, I'd like to introduce Sanjeev Krishnan, who's the Senior Manager of Data Intelligence at Asurion. So Sanjeev, could you just let us know a little bit about your role and also take a moment to update the audience on Asurion?
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike.
Welcome.
I lead the data intelligence team within the privacy and security organization here at Asurion, and my team is responsible for empowering data governance and privacy operations through technology and automation. About Asurion, Asurion is a global tech care and device protection company providing device insurance, repairs, and services for cell phones, home electronics, and home appliances. If your cellular provider is through Verizon, AT&T, US Cellular, Cricket Wireless, to just name a few, and have a device protection plan through one of these companies, you're probably an Asurion customer. Likewise, if you've ever purchased a protection plan through Amazon, you're again probably an Asurion customer.
Well, Sanjeev, I can share I'm a customer. So I use Verizon. I have an iPhone, and it's come to help me a few times. So great to have you on this call and look forward to this discussion. For our next panelist, I'd like to introduce Raja Perumal, who is the Senior Alliances Manager at Databricks. Raja, a little bit about your role and your why you're here on this panel.
Hey everyone, my name is Roger Perumal, and I've been at Databricks for about 2 years. I help our customers and our partners deal with their data governance challenges, especially important as we deal with more AI use cases in our ecosystem.
Good, thank you, and welcome again. And for our third panelist, I'd like to introduce Jocelyn Hull, who is the Senior Director of Product Management at Securiti. Jocelyn, a little bit about your role in Securiti as a company.
Hi, Mike. It's great to see you. My name is Jocelyn Hull. I'm a Senior Director of Product Management at Securiti, which is the secure data and AI company. We try to manage all of your data through the command center, which we'll talk about later, I think. But in my past, before this work, I really spent my whole career focused on building very large-scale data and AI platforms at companies like Capital One, Microsoft, and Fannie Mae.
Oh, great. Wonderful. And Jocelyn, great to have you. And we appreciate the support for this EDM webinar and for our audience to get these educational updates. So thank you for that support. All right, let's get going with our first question. And Sanjeev, to sort of set the state of affairs, what is the current state of data in enterprises? You're on that front line. And how has it evolved over the recent years to bring us where we are today?
I would say data discovery is the biggest challenge that we are trying to solve here at Asurion with the exponential growth of data, just not in terms of volumes, but in sheer terms of, different disparate data sources, technologies. The problem has amplified just from a pure play data discovery standpoint, and with mergers and acquisitions, it it has really grown. There is the issue of dark data discovery, where application teams spin up instances without a standardized process, and you have siloed data on top of what's already out there. Um, and I'm going to touch a little bit more on data retention and disposal, because that's a big problem area that we've been attempting to solve here. Um, Regulations are evolving, uh, obviously from a broader privacy landscape, but all that boils down to data. Um, we do have retention rules and policies configured, but at times and this happens quite often, there are old data sets that are lying around to support archaic and corner use cases, which often at times, I mean, we are challenged with the question, what's the risk versus the benefits of keeping this data? So those are some of the from a data landscape side of things that we at Asurion are uh, solving for.
Yeah, and Sanjeev, you raised it right at the very beginning. You made a statement, and just I wanted the audience to tune in on this one, which is that the greatest challenge is data discovery, and that data discovery both in standard forms and dark data, and you have an exponential rate of data now coming into the scene, and frankly, with generative AI, an exponential set of requirements on how to use that data. Is that really, in your mind, one of the very biggest things that you're having to worry about?
It is initially data cataloging was, as companies were trying to go about data cataloging,
Hmm.
that was the main challenge that companies of our size or across similar verticals or different verticals were trying to solve this problem. And data cataloging, if you think about it, was being solved at by the data organization or for solving analytics purposes. But as you broaden out the scope of structured, unstructured, semi-structured data, getting all that information cataloged uh, in a central platform for broader discovery to solve multiple use cases like data access governance, data access controls,
Yep.
data retention, so on and so forth, on top of the other uh, Gen AI use cases. Uh, so we're basically trying to solve the basic fundamental problem, getting our guardrails set in place. Uh, so that way, I mean, we are positioned ourselves very well to solve the Gen AI use cases.
Sanjeev, great context setting. And for our audience, I want to encourage, get your hands on the keyboard, type questions into the Q&A box. As we go along, we are going to do our best to get every one of these questions asked, and any we miss, we're going to provide written responses afterwards. So either way, whether we cover it live on this webinar or we do it as a written document afterwards, all your questions will be asked. So please feel free to type the questions in as you have them. We're also going to dedicate about 10 minutes towards the end just to do as many audience questions as possible. So Sanjeev, thanks for setting the context. Now this brave new world of generative AI, about a year or so ago when OpenAI released ChatGPT, that was the eye-opener of all the new ways humans can discuss and converse with computers. Computers can see now a vast array of data and patterns, and you can do things like have a dialogue, write poems, do customer service, create products. So Raja, if you don't mind jumping in at this point, all of those capabilities are very exciting, but they almost exponentially raise the bar in the risks that are happening at this point. Do you mind sort of walking the audience through what type of risk are we seeing and what you need to really factor if you're going to go and pursue generative AI use cases?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the anecdote that I always like to start with when we talk about generative AI risk is I'm sure many of you have heard this story already of the Chevrolet dealership in California, where they had a chatbot powered by OpenAI, and through prompt injection techniques and just asking questions, they convinced the AI chatbot to offer a pickup truck for $1. And obviously that's an extreme case, but that gives you an example of the kind of protections you need to put in place around things like prompt safety and model safety to make sure that your AI is doing what you want it to do and signaling the right information to your customers and to your end users. There's that's obviously an extreme case, but there's a lot of things that we need to consider when we talk about AI. And I think the general idea is that you are going to have a lot more data that both feeds the AI and is produced by the AI. And what that means is that you need to have an architecture that gives the AI the right data. One modern architecture around that is retrieval augmented generation. So you're using the right enterprise data to provide information for your LLM model to provide the right information to your end users. For example, the prices of cars, the minimum prices of cars being obviously more than $1. And then because generative AI is producing so much data, you also have to be cognizant about what regulations that might be at play, both in terms of who can access that data, what kind of data it produces, is there any PII implications to the data that is being created by generative AI? So there's a lot of different areas in which generative AI can cause risk for enterprises, but it's important to understand that you can use generative AI both to protect yourself against risk and manage data at scale, and also you can use sophisticated modern architecture to ensure that you're providing the right data to these LLMs.
So, Raj, a follow-up question for you is that these are really phenomenal, powerful capabilities that everyone is looking to take advantage of. It just opens up a whole new set of use cases none of us could have contemplated before. But there's also an equal burden that you now have more sophisticated data protection and data security challenges. Is that what you're basically pointing out? Is that as much as there's new capabilities, there's a whole new set of threats? And do you mind just honing in for a moment into what you would say are this top couple of threats that now with generative AI you have to really think about that maybe a year or two ago wasn't on the landscape?
Yeah, sure. So traditionally, when we think about data governance and data security, you have kind of a very discrete set of data that you need to protect and you need to lock down, and you could maybe even do that with a team of of resources, specific people to help make sure that they are locking down the data. Now, generative AI is producing so much data that you need to have tools in place that manage that data at scale because you don't know what's going to be spit out by that LLM. The second thing is you need to make sure that the LLM or your generative AI does not hallucinate. You need to make sure that it's accessing the right set of data using this retrieval augmented generation architecture to make sure that the data that is created is true to some extent and not using private data or sensitive data that may put your enterprise at risk.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is that the large language models need a lot of data to properly be trained. If inadvertently part of that data includes sensitive data, you're training your large language model on the use of sensitive data. It's like giving bad information to a young child. They're not going to be responsible for what they say about it. And that's what you have to guard against. It's that new type of risk of large language models needing lots of data. And if you don't really assure what they're being trained on, you take an exponential risk and you give away cars for $1.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Understood. Well, that's a really interesting set of problems. I guess it moves me on to that next question. And Jocelyn, if you don't mind jumping in on this. And by the way, for our audience, please go forward. If you have a question or anything that comes to mind about these topics, just pop it in and we're going to add them in along the way. So this question, Jocelyn, which is, what are the key capabilities required for a robust enterprise data management within the enterprise?
I'm so glad you asked me that as a follow-on to the question you just discussed, because it's an interesting new way of dealing with implementation and operational efficiency. LLMs, AI require you to get your arms around all the data, and it kind of defies the old agile approach where you just pick a small, discrete data set. So where do you get your starting point? And what we're seeing is more and more customers are following along, and I'm sure Sanjeev will talk about this later about how he's using Databricks and Security together. But typically what we're seeing is people are focused on finding all of their data, identifying sensitive data, and then locking down access. Like that's the sort of all the things you could do with your data to manage it, to make it, fancier, search, better public, you can do better sharing. There's so much you can do once you've identified it, but most customers are starting with, we like to call it little things mean a lot. It's sort of the baseline, and then they can expand. And when they do try to expand, one thing we, and Mike, I'm going to have you help me talk a little bit about this is,
Sure.
when you're like, hey, I found my data, I've used the best tech I have to do the access intelligence and access governance. What do I do next? We see so many customers who are interested in building a whole program around those first steps. We contributed to the CDMC framework, and we often share this with our customers and walk through it with them. I understand there may be a new one coming as well.
Yeah, so Jocelyn, thanks for raising this up. And for our audience, the EDM Council is a neutral nonprofit. We have hundreds of companies that participate with us, representing all different industries, financial, manufacturing, consumer products, and more. And we also have the blessing that we have regulators as part of our membership as well. And so everyone is here at the table trying to make sure we solve important issues. And we were approached by our membership to say, it would be wonderful now that we have all this compute power that cloud represents. And now if you even add the extra ante of all of the generative AI capabilities, the risks that Raja and Sanjeev have been pointing out, that with lots of data, you increase the risk involved. So it was a group collaboration of over 100 companies, 300 subject matter experts, 750 meetings over about a year and a half to build a cloud data risk framework that would be based on automations. And what you see on this slide, and Jocelyn, and having this up on the screen for our audience, you'll see 6 main components of the framework that the team came up with. And it starts out with governance and accountability of data. And then it moves on to catalog and classification, which is if you really are going to pursue and scale your data real estate and pursue it so that you're always being ahead of that exponential growth of data in cloud that it allows you, you must catalog and classify all data. If you don't do that, you're unaware of whether or not there's sensitive data embedded or not. And once you have cataloged and classified, you'll see the rest of these automations come in. And what was great, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, the large cloud companies, Security was very active. Many different companies across the spectrum, both public and private, got in. And then as we were building this framework, we were reviewing it with regulators across the world to say, are we focusing on the right area? So good news for our audience. This framework is now available, and you can download it and assess your operation to assure you have the right controls in place. And you can work with companies like Securiti and the cloud companies that you're working with to turn these controls on to protect sensitive data. And you'll see, by the way, in chat, we put in a link so that you can download this. It's a free resource. Our job is we care nothing other than the truth and making sure that this is an unbiased set of controls that'll protect your landscape. But it's not all you must do. This is a beginning step of getting in the basic controls. So Jocelyn, I welcome your thoughts further on this topic. What else do you need to think about? You have to have controls, but what else?
Well, one of the things I like about this slide is just to sort of summarize where we've been and the idea of what are your first steps here. The blue section on the is on my left is, as you said, data cataloging, finding all the data, classifying it, to finding out what's sensitive, and then access, right? It's sort of at the top here, you're doing your assessments, you're holding on to access. And these are the things that we think are your sort of no regrets baseline work, heavy lift. That's how we work with Databricks and Securiti with our shared customers. That's our first use case. And then this may just be a transition to use, Sanjeev, because you can see on the right-hand side, there's like a little bit fancier activities, one of which you already referenced, which is the sort of rot or deduping data. It might be a good transition point to hear a little bit more from a operator.
No, absolutely. And Sanjeev, you're on that front line. And I guess if you can carry this forward, which is, you have this pretty simple picture of a cloud, 14 controls, everything is easy. But it's not.
That's right, right?
And-
That's
and,
it. Just check,
yeah,
check,
we're
check.
done. We're done. We figured it all out. No, it is. These are the fundamentals. But even